You can't just move on and act like, oh, because then it's going to be another white woman. And then it's going to be another white woman. And then how many more white women are going to have to be murdered in the street for you to get angry enough to say, excuse my French, but fuck this. I'm going to run this shit at this point. Black women has always ran the family. The Black woman is always the matriarch. You can have 100-year-old granddaddy and 100-year-old grandmother, but the grandmother is the matriarch because she's the one that instills in the children what's right and what's wrong. What's right, how you should act, what you shouldn't do. The daddies didn't do that. Maybe with the sons, but when it comes to the women, it was our grandparents, our grandmothers, our mothers, our aunts. So sit down with your moms, sit down with your aunts, sit down with those people and be like, hey, tell me how you contributed to this. How do you feel about that? Let's talk this through so we can get through this, because I'm going to be here for Easter. I'm going to be here for Thanksgiving. I'm going to be here for Christmas, but I just need to be at peace at knowing that where were you? Like, these are the conversations that need to be had. And I'm sorry to take over, but that's just been on my heart. I've been in your box for the past few days trying to get that message since it happened. And I'm no offense, but I'm disappointed. Because I feel like when it was us, there was nowhere we couldn't see where y'all were talking about it. Now it's y'all. And I don't see nothing. So now I have no choice as a Black woman but to think, was it performative when it was us? Was it just because it was the trend? Because now that it's on y'all table, y'all ain't shaking nothing.
First of all, you don't need to apologize for anything, friend. No notes. That's all I can tell you. No notes. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. History tells us that every time we've been told the democracy is under threat, who's been the first one to step up? It's Black women. Every single time. That's why I try to make it a point to try to call out white men and white people in general. Because you're right. You're right. We can sit back in our safe space. Even people who claim to be activists, even people who claim to defend the rights of marginalized communities, they still don't do enough. I should say, we still don't do enough. We need everybody to be like, just to look around, because if they can literally take the life, if they can murder a 37-year-old white woman in the streets of an American city indiscriminately, while making every excuse for it, if they can do it to her, they can do it to anybody. Anybody. Thank you for being here today. I really, really appreciate you. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I just want to say thank you for having this space. I look forward to listening to you every day. Let me tell you something. I just want to say this one thing. And I mean, you don't know me from a can of paint, but I'm not a fan of anyone. But I am such a fan of you. I feel like you come here and you are pure and your intent is beautiful. Every time I get on here, I'm just looking forward to what Facts has to say because you leave no notes every day. As a white man, as handsome as you are, I tell my wife all the time, and she be hearing me, I be like, Facts is just so cute. And I just, but I just purely and no, nothing, I don't know you, but I feel every day what you say. And I'm a woman from the South. I'm from the South, and I am just so grateful. And I don't want you to ever change. I want you to continue to do what you do. What you're doing is chef's kiss. And that's all I have to say. I look forward to my 8 to 12. It be locked in and loaded. Nobody calls me nothing because I'm always hearing what you have to say. And I'm very pleased. And thank you.
Thank you, friend.
You have a great one.
Thank you very much. You too. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. No notes. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for saying that. I'll take my flowers. I literally took the flowers there. I appreciate what you said. And she's right. And I think, the whole point of what we try to do here every day is, listen, I don't want to say this. if it's not us, then who? If we're not going to talk about it, who is? Right? Who is? I'm unapologetic. I'm 58 years old. I got a bad back. I got a small business that I'm trying to keep afloat. But I can tell you one thing. I'm going to be fucking honest with you. I'm going to be sincere about it. I hope you appreciate it, because it's not about me. It's about what we have to fight for. We are being fucking lied to every single fucking day. We, the collective, are being lied to. We are trying to remind people at what is at stake. I am going to be the tip of the fucking spear calling out other white men in particular and white women. I'm not a white woman, but I'm a white person, because it's all white people until it's not. It's definitely all men until it's not. Therefore, it's always white men. And it's all white men until it's not. Those of you who are, those of you white men who are triggered by that, you're the fucking problem. Don't be triggered by it. Just say, what does he mean by that? Especially those of you who come into our show every single day. For those of you who come here and say, I like what Steve has to say. I don't agree with necessarily everything he has to say, but I like what he has to say. So if you do, then don't take it so fucking personally. Don't take it so fucking personally. Just be like, all right, I get it. When he talks about a system that was built by people who look like me, to benefit people to look like me, to protect people who look like me, what does he mean by that? What does he mean by that? Because, I didn't build the system. So maybe it's a system built on white supremacy? I never really thought about it that way. Maybe it's a system built on taking advantage of systemic racism to diminish people who are marginalized every single day? I never thought about it that way. Right? I've never thought about it that way. The fact that we are now, literally involved every single day in a network predominantly dominated by white men that are abusing children. If you are offended by my saying it's all men until it's no men, then you're part of the fucking problem. You're part of the problem. Why should people like our previous guest, or why should other black women in particular, or why should women in general be the ones to save us? They didn't create the fucking problem. We did. People who look like me did. People who are me in the grand scheme of things did. Why the fuck should somebody else have to step up? All they've been doing is stepping up. They're putting out the fire while white men are walking around with a gas can. Every fucking day. It's the same thing. You think I like talking about this? I wish I didn't have to. I would love to be able to talk about, how we approach improving our education system, or how we approach, a better healthcare system, or how we get money out of politics. I'd love to be able to sit down and have those legislative conversations. I grew up in politics. I get it. I understand how the machine works. I get it. I also know there are things that we can do to make our lives better, but we can't have that conversation. We can't, because we've got to get people to wake the fuck up. People have got to stop. White men, white people, white men in particular, you've got to stop being so fucking entitled. You have got to stop acting like you're self-entitled, righteous fucking bullshit, and do something. Listen to the words. If you will sit in your space and say, you know what? I really, really want to do better. That's great. That's acknowledgement. That's the first step. But if you've been running around saying, hey, my life is hard. I grew up poor. I didn't have shit. I don't have fucking privilege. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You live in it. You are part of it. You didn't create it, but you live in it now. And you're never oppressed in our society as a white man. Never. Never. Start fucking understanding that and start doing something about it. I have an expectation that you white men are going to be out there in front, standing shoulder to shoulder. Listen, I've not met any women that in our space that say, I need men to protect me. I don't think that's what women are asking for. I know they're saying, hey, how about just not fucking graping us? Let's start there. Let's just start there. with something as basic as that. Same applies for marginalized community, all marginalized communities, everyone. How about just recognizing that black people in our society were brought here through slavery and have been diminished ever since? How about acknowledging that? How about acknowledging that the LGBTQIA community, in particular these days, the trans community, is just vilified for just being themselves? And what are you going to do about it? Good segue for do something. So this whole thing that we've been talking about do something, I mean it. I try to live it, right? When I talk about do something, it literally means doing anything. I don't want to sound like a broken record. For those of you who are here every day, you hear me talk about it a lot, but I want to make sure the message is getting out there, right? Doing something could be literally anything. It could just be doing something to make the world around you a little bit better. Not necessarily for yourself, but for others. The examples that people give, like when you're leaving the house in the morning and you're making your lunch, make an extra sandwich. You see somebody who's houseless, somebody's on the street, give them the sandwich. Socks, pick up an extra pair of socks or extra socks from next time you go shopping. Feminine hygiene products, drop them off at houseless shelters. Little things. Volunteering in your community. Going and volunteering after school to read books to kids. Maybe volunteering in a kindergarten class. You want to find joy? I was thinking about this last night as we are anticipating college. I remember volunteering in her classroom when she was, in preschool, and just like reading books and reading, Curious and Big Red Barn, right? And then the kids in the corner, they would have all these stuffed animals and they'd have bean bags and would be pile-ons. That shit just fuels you because they're innocent. Don't you want to be involved in that, spreading a little joy? There are so many things that we can all do. Those are the little things. Do something to me, it also involves a road show. The plan is to get out on the road. And at some point here, we're working on the pieces. I'm going to be asking for your help because I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need sponsors. I'm going to need your help to do this. I want to go to underserved communities. I want to remind people that there's so much worth fighting for. People who are not involved in the day-to-day of politics, they may not necessarily understand. They may not even pay attention to the news, but they're suffering. They're suffering. We're all suffering. How then do we get people motivated to vote? How do we do it? How do we get people to the polls? That's what the Do Something Tour is going to be all about for me. I want to use my white, listen, I sit at the fucking pinnacle. White, cis, hetero male in America. I sit at the fucking pinnacle. The only thing I'm not is Christian. But I can speak to Christians. I grew up Catholic. I am going to fucking use my privilege. If it's the only thing if I drop dead next Thursday, what I'm going to do is use my voice and use my privilege and use this platform, the gratitude that I have for our community, to talk about people, to talk about others, to talk about the plights of others, and to get in the face of white men who feel entitled, who feel like they don't have to be bothered because their life hasn't changed. I will. I will be there. I will be having that conversation. That is my commitment, and I will figure out a way to get it done somehow, some way. I'm going to need your help, though. Hey, Ash.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I wanted to say two things. I just wanted to offer something really simple that I did last year. I live on a main road and I have a sidewalk, and I just write messages on my sidewalk. People walk up and down. So I put even just like voting websites and things like that. So you can do that with fun messages too. Maybe leave the chalk out, have people write messages back and forth. Just something simple and easy. You don't even really have to leave your house for that. And then I wanted to follow up on the last guest and just to remind people that as humans, women go through menopause for a reason and don't die. In the animal kingdom, people usually procreate until they pass away. And that's because women are valuable after menopause for the cycle of humans. And in all those other matriarchs, the elder women do exactly what the last guest was saying. They teach the young men how to survive. They teach them how to even hunt. And we have thrown old people away. We've thrown people who aren't valuable in what they can give you. And I just want to remind people that we're built for that. And it is going to take the women doing it, and we need men to let us do it. And I know that sounds horrible, but like we need them to stand as close to us as possible, but not be in front. Because it's right. Women need to lead, but we do need men. We need men like Facts, and we need people who understand that they have to let us do that. And we are equipped, literally biologically, and it's like through evolution. This is what women were meant for. And when you look at other kingdoms, like animal kingdoms, like lions, right? They will kill the men. They will the male lions. They let them just go when they're old. But when you look at matriarchs, they function better. And that's what we were meant to be. And it was stolen from us. And I know I've talked about this before, but I just wanted to give some encouragement for people who are feeling devalued or not knowing what to do. Yeah, I don't know. Just keep fighting the fight.
I think about the praying mantises in the female praying mantis bites the fucking head off the male after they have sex.
I mean, that's what like if you're not gonna give us like the matriarch of like the orcas, then sure, we're gonna switch to a different matriarch, and it's not gonna be what you want, right? Like if you won't, right, it's not what a true matriarch is, and taking care of everybody. They've placed women in this role of having babies and taking care of people that way. And then when you're done, they've thrown us away. And they stole that from us, and it makes me mad.
Well said.
But that's it. Have a good one, okay?
Thank you, friend. I appreciate
you.
Talk to you soon. Be well. Right. I mean, this is the things that we advocate for, right? The thing is that this is part of what men are afraid of, right? We can think about the situation with Jonathan Ross and Renee Good. He got insulted. His feelings were hurt by two lesbian women who called out his bullshit, and he reacted in his emotions. You can look at other societies around the world that are predominantly run by women. Women prime ministers, women presidents, women legislatures, and look at their society. Look at their society. It's just real simple. Question is, what do you want to prioritize? And the only way that happens in our country is if white men get on fucking board. So that's part of what do something means to me. So more to come on that, but I'm going to need your help. I'm trying to work with a couple of organizations. The plan is a road show, whatever that looked like. I want to go to communities. I want to talk to people. I want it to be osmosis. If we're talking about roughly 90 million people who didn't vote, right? I think there's 45 million that are gettable voters who just feel like society has left them behind. They don't feel like the government can work. They're not at both sides. Same two wings of the same. They're not that group. That's lazy as far as I'm concerned. They are people who really, really, they're hard work. They're raising their family. They want their children's lives to be better than their own. They want their grandchildren. They want to be able to retire and work with dignity. Those are the folks I want to talk to. So if that's 45 million people, imagine if we just flip 1% of those people. 1%. 1% of that group of people. What's that? 450,000 people suddenly participate in elections that haven't in the past. 1% becomes 2%. 2% becomes 10%. Then we're talking about 4.5 million people that could potentially be part of something revolutionary. Voter activism. So we'll see, but more to come on that. So thank you for that, and thank you for your kind words. I appreciate you all very, very much. All right, I'll bring up one more guest, and then we'll get into the last couple of hours of our show. It's going to be heavy. I'll give you trigger warnings now because there's a lot to discuss. But we have to share the story because it's too important not to. Hang on one sec. White guilt is BS? Yeah. Well, you should feel guilty for the things that you've done, not individually. Yeah, I did, Erica. We talked about the Jerome Powell and the lawsuit. Yeah, we did, unless there's something new. All right. Looks like we might have guests that have dropped out of the box. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to get into now, and again, I'll say this is trigger warnings. So there is some pretty explosive new information that has emerged. And it has to do with a person by the name of Sasha Riley. So I'm going to try to set this up as best I can for you because of the extreme nature of some of the audio. I'm going to play a little bit for you today. I'm not going to play all of it, but I'm going to try to connect some dots for you so that we don't get into, it's never been my intention. I try to make a commitment to you. It's never my intention to re-traumatize people. It's difficult to tell this story. I've been stressing about how to do this because I don't want to re-traumatize folks, but I think it's necessary. Sometimes we just have to lean in. So if you don't want to be here, I fully understand because some of it is very triggering. Not just on the sexual assault on that side, but there's also murder and there's torture. So all these kinds of things. So trigger warning, if you feel like you can't stay, I will not take offense. So Sasha Riley, a decorated Iraqi veteran. So what I think I'm going to do is that this story showed up on Substack, and the person who again reported on this, their name is, hang on one second. Their name is Lisa Noel Volding, and you can find their account. It's Volding, Voldeng. So I'm going to read you some of the stories. I'm going to play some sound so you can hear Sasha's voice. Because again, these are allegations that are being made. This person, Sasha Riley, is prepared to name names. In fact, they have named some names in what I'm about to read you and what we're about to hear. And they are calling for more transparency. And apparently they're willing to go even further than what they've done now. So I will take you through this. All right. The Trump Epstein and Associated Criminal Enterprise is how the title of the article starts. These briefings contain firsthand accounts of extreme child trafficking, schmorcher, grape, and schmurder conducted within the Trump Epstein and Associated Criminal Enterprise over the course of several decades. This briefing is part 1 of 2. It includes 6 unedited audio recordings. We will post it if you want. Mods, I think we should post this with trigger warnings. We will post it in the general chat if you'd like to get it to the Discord. This briefing is part 1 of 2. It includes 6 unedited audio recordings. This person, Ms. Volding, says, I recorded the audio myself. The master files remain in my custody. Copies of these recordings and supporting documentation have been securely distributed to police and to trusted allies in several countries. Part 2 maps selected incidences to support the evidence. I will publish additional information at my discretion. I decided to publish these accounts in the public interest. Investigations are ongoing. During the years, SR, they refer to SR, Sasha Riley, was trafficked, excuse me, During the years SR was trafficked within the Trump Epstein ring, he was forced to perform acts during the filming of several child porn films, including a snuff film. He recalls at least 10 to 12 such films. During the snuff film shoot, SR saw a girl child schmurdered during filming. After another film shoot, a girl child was taken to another room. SR recalls hearing gunshots. He said that when he heard the gunshots, he was scared. He said that another perpetrator still in the room with him, sensing his fear, said, "Don't worry, boys are hard to find." The films were produced within the Trump Epstein ring. Summary. I met Sasha Riley, a decorated Iraq veteran, during the course of my work. I realized that he needed help. I offered to help. I help. I first spoke with him by phone and recorded his initial victim testimony during July 19th to the 24th of 2025. His testimony is a window into the systemic schmorcher, grape, and schmurder of impoverished children under the ages of 13 for profit and sport within the Trump, Epstein, and Associated Criminal Enterprise. Sasha was adopted during 1977 for the purposes of trafficking by William Kyle Riley, WKR. Sasha was trafficked by WKR within the Trump Epstein ring from about 9 to 13 years old. Prior to trafficking within the Trump Epstein ring, Sasha was trafficked to relatives from about the age of 6. WKR worked as a pilot and trafficker for Trump and conspirators within the Trump Epstein and Associated Criminal Enterprise. WKR hunted victims, trafficked victims, transported clients and victims on airplanes and helicopters, and silenced victims, including by unaliving. And WKR and his father, Paul, worked within the Dixie Mafia. Sasha is one of the only trafficking survivors from during those years. P3DO perpetrators Sasha is willing to testify against include Donald J. Trump, Andy Biggs, Jim Jordan, Lindsey Graham, and Clarence Thomas. So I'm going to pause briefly there for 1 second. I'm going to continue with this. I'm going to play some sound so you can hear Sasha's voice. But I want to talk about Clarence Thomas a little bit. This reporting comes from the BBC from 2023. So I pulled on this thread, and sure enough, what did I find? Clarence Thomas and Bohemian Grove. What goes on at the all-male club? Bohemian Grove, an all-male club for the rich and powerful, is in the news after it was reported that Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas visited the retreat with a billionaire friend. A report by investigation news outlet ProPublica revealed that Justice Thomas accepted luxury gifts around the world from billionaire Republican donor Harlan Crow. This included a visit to the Bohemian Grove. Located in remote Sonoma County, and secrecy has inspired both protests and conspiracy theories. The club that runs the retreats insists that business talk is forbidden. But reports say some of America's most powerful men have cut deals and networked amid an odd assortment of performances and rituals at the 150-year-old club. How did it start? The Bohemian Club was started by journalists, artists, and musicians in San Francisco in 1872. Mark Twain was an early member. The 2-week encampment at Bohemian Grove, a 2,700-acre wooded rural retreat, began 6 years later as a send-off for an actor who was moving to New York City. Over time, the artsy roots of the club expanded to include business people and politicians, prominent figures. Members are allowed to bring guests, but the gathering is closed to media and outsiders. Who belongs to the club? Although the list of 2,500 members is secret, some information is filtered out, and the club maintains a bare-bones website. Past members include Presidents Herbert Hoover, Ronald Reagan, and Richard Nixon, along with a litany of famous writers, actors, and businessmen. The Grove's motto, taken from A Midsummer Night's Dream, is, quote, "Weaving spiders come not here," an admonition against business talk that has been often ignored. Most famously, a planning meeting for the Manhattan Project in 1942, held at the Grove, later led to the development of the atomic bomb. 2-week encampment, so what really goes on there? The 2-week encampment reportedly involves stage performances, rituals, a lot of drinking, and open-air urination. Over the years, anti-capitalist, environmental, and anti-nuclear demonstrations have protested against the event, although a local news report last year noted the protests have become smaller over time. Journalists have repeatedly tried to infiltrate the gathering. In a 1989 article in Spy magazine called "The Encampment, the most exclusive frat party on earth," and added detail in a speech by Mr. Reagan, who had just left office. In the year 2000, conspiracy theorist Alex Jones snuck in and recorded one of the club's rituals, the burning of an effigy. He made a documentary filled with lurid accusations about grand plots and human sacrifice. He was accompanied by the journalist John Ronson, who had an altogether different take. He later wrote, quote, "My lasting impression was of an all-pervading sense of immaturity. I wondered whether the Bohemian shroud themselves in secrecy for reasons no more sinister than they thought it was cool. The club is currently advertising vacancies for bartenders, security officers, and other jobs for this summer's events. What is not known, however, is who will be the attendees." So that's Clarence Thomas's name connected to the Sasha Riley story. Clarence Thomas's name connected to this really strange club called the Bohemian Grove. I'd never heard about it until about 2 o'clock this morning, when I'm like, what? Clarence Thomas, what does that mean? Bohemian Grove? Sure enough. Not making any accusations, but when you start to put the same people connected to some of the other shit involved in these little clubs that nobody has information on, that is very secretive, and they talk about how boys are hard to find, girls are disposable, but boys are hard to find, right? That then leads us more to this story. So back to what I was just reading to you. WKR hunted victims, trafficked victims, transported clients and victims on airplanes and helicopters, and silenced victims, including by Schmurder. And WKR and his father, Paul, worked within the Dixie Mafia. Sasha is one of the only trafficking survivors from during those years. I gave you the names, that he's willing to name names. In addition to these, Donald Trump, Andy Biggs, Jim Jordan, Lindsey Graham, and Clarence Thomas. I told Sasha I would publish audio of her conversations, unedited and unredacted. And so I am. For myself, for Sasha, and for his friends Samantha and Patricia and Sarah, all of whom lost their lives. And for the rest of the victims buried on all the farms, the ranches, the patches of wilderness across the good, sweet earth, and for those and the rest of the innocent, and for the rest of the innocent. The evidence is ample. Corn films, videos, CPS reports, FBI reports on WKR, and a military report involving the court-martial of a fellow soldier found with child porn depicting Sasha and one of the Schmurder victims, Samantha, a decade earlier. Much of the evidence has been suppressed. Some is obtainable by FOIA request and by investigator requests. So, this is a summary. A two-tiered system, how illicit part unspeakable horrors. Again, trigger warnings. According to the survivor's testimony, the trafficking events were not impulsive acts but sophisticated multi-day affairs, often held on farms and scheduled around federal holidays. A key element of their design was a two-tiered structure that provided a powerful shield of plausible deniability for its most influential attendees. The first tier was a larger initial party where the survivor calls mildly illegal. Those activities would take place, the mildly illegal ones. This event was attended by numerous powerful people, creating a veneer of a standard, albeit decadent, gathering. As the event continued over several days, the crowd would thin out. In the final day or two, it would shrink to a smaller inner circle, and it was here, under the cover of the larger party, that really horrible shit happened, including the torture and schmurder of victims. This was not merely a party. It was a meticulously engineered ecosystem of complicity designed to ensnare influential figures and lesser crimes to ensure their silence about the atrocities committed by the inner circle. The presence of high-profile individuals created a list of potential witnesses who could be blackmailed. Now, if we think about what we've learned from the Epstein files that Michael Wolff has uncovered and others have uncovered about pictures, about videos, about images found in safes, right? That was all part of the reason that they say that all these pictures exist is so that Jeffrey could blackmail these individuals, right? So that's, again, if you connect the dots, it's like, okay, yep, yeah, exactly. They use the larger party as plausible deniability. And then as people left, the inner circle got involved. Yeah, it was here under the cover of the larger party that the really horrible shit happened, including the torture and murder of victims. So it's not merely a party, it was a meticulously engineered ecosystem of complicity, designed to ensnare influential figures and lesser crimes to ensure their silence about the atrocities committed by the inner circle. The presence of high-profile individuals created a list of potential witnesses who could be blackmailed, ensuring that the ring's darkest secrets remain protected by a web of compromised power. Quote, I think to some degree, the people that were waiting there to the end of the party, I mean, they're using all of those other big names and stuff that may have done things that they're not proud of as a cover. Number two, a new hierarchy. Epstein allegedly worked for Trump and a cabal of the super rich. This is new. Contrary to the public narrative that is centered on J.E. as a singular mastermind, the survivor's childhood perception was that Epstein was the survivor's childhood perception was that Epstein was not the ultimate ringleader. He alleges that Jeffrey functioned more like a lead coordinator or a general manager for a more powerful group. In this alleged hierarchy, Jeffrey worked for Donald and a cabal of 6 or 8 other super rich guys. According to the survivor, Trump was not merely a client visiting the operation. He was in a position of authority above Jeffrey, actively helping to facilitate the entire enterprise. This account reframes the known power dynamics, suggesting that Jeffrey's network may have been a service provider for a small, insulated circle of the ultra-wealthy who were the true architects of the operation. It was almost as if Jeffrey worked for Trump, It wasn't that Trump was a John visiting, Epstein's empire of, child victims. It was Trump was in a position above Jeffrey. The calculated cruelty. Trigger warnings. The survivor describes a brothel where a small number of underage girls were housed. These girls were sold a false narrative that they were being groomed to be matched with rich men who would give them a life of luxury. This lie was a tool of control, but it had a shelf life. According to the testimony, once the girls became cognizant that they weren't going to really ever rise above that, the promise of a better life was a cruel deception, they were considered to have, quote, passed their expiration date. At this point, they were a liability and they were eliminated. This brutal logic manifested in a staggering death toll. During a period of just a couple of months at the brothel, the survivor witnessed at least 5 people being murdered, including an assisted self-unaliving. An execution by a mobster meant to terrorize the group and other murders. The result was a 100% mortality rate for the friends that he made there. Samantha was tortured to death. Sarah passed by assisted self-unaliving, and Patricia was unalived at a party. He said, quote, he said, "You're good. Girls are a dime a dozen. Boys are hard to find." Number 4, act of defiance. The attack on Trump and the savage retribution. At around 12 years old, the survivor was forced to watch his friend Patricia be schmorchered and schmurdered in their room. In her final moments, as she pleaded for it to end, he looked at her and said, "Baby, you're going to come be with me right now." She smiled. He told her, "I love you." And then one of the men pew-pewed her in the head. Immediately after her body was removed, one of the men threatened him directly. "If you don't do everything that the next person coming in here wants, we're going to do the same thing to you, just like we did to her." Believing he was going to be unalived regardless, the survivor resolved to fight back. His internal monologue was one of pure defiance. Quote, I'm going to kill this son of a bitch if I just happen to get an opportunity. I had already decided they're probably just going to unalive me anyway. I'm going to take him with me. When Trump entered the room and began his assault, demanding the survivor have schmecks with him, the opportunity arose. The survivor describes using a wooden tent stake to impale Trump, causing a severe injury that required him to be airlifted from the property. The retribution for his act was swift and savage. He was taken to another party and systematically beaten by 8 to 10 different people. After that, he was taken to be assaulted by Andy Biggs, who beat him so badly he suffered broken ribs and was convulsing, turning blue. The survivor recalls the brutal sequence as the last of it, after which his adoptive father said no more. Not out of compassion, but due to the psychological toll of watching me just get destroyed by people. A chain of failed rescues, ignored police reports, and institutional inaction. Again, trigger warnings. Perhaps one of the most damning revelations is the chronicle of institutional failure across multiple states and jurisdictions. The survivor's account details a pattern of missed opportunities by local police, CPS, Child Protective Services, and even the U.S. military that allowed the horror to continue for years. 4 police reports. The survivor recalls at least 4 separate incidences where his parents tried to unalive him, all of which generated police reports: being locked in a Chevy van in the Texas heat, being thrown into a pool, being thrown down a flight of stairs, and being left in a riptide. After the riptide incident, he remembers the local sheriff in Alabama explicitly warning his father, quote, "You're going to go to jail. I don't care. I'll make sure of it." Yet the abuse continued. A murder investigation. When neighbors heard screams from a duplex where a girl named Samantha was being schmorchered to death, they called the police. An investigation was launched, but it failed because investigators could not get permission from the survivor's father to interrogate him as a child witness. The military's discovery. Years later, between 2008 and 2009, while the survivor was serving in the Army, his commanding officer informed him that they had discovered films of his childhood abuse on another soldier's computer. The military prosecuted the soldier for possession, but conducted no further investigation into the production of the films itself. The conclusion. The testimony of William Sasha Riley, if proven true, implicates some of the most powerful men in the country, so in the most heinous crimes imaginable. His account is one not only of unimaginable personal horror, but of a sophisticated criminal enterprise protected by wealth, influence, and systemic apathy. It is a story of a system that repeatedly failed to see what was right in front of it, leaving a child to fend for itself against monsters. In the face of such testimony, what is the true meaning of justice, and what is our collective responsibility to demand it? Now, these are allegations, right? I'm not here to make a definitive claim about innocence or guilt, but I believe survivors. I believe victims. I believe women. I believe men, boys in this case. It just goes to show how far this administration is willing to go. Is willing to go to protect themselves. Remember that famous statement that Marjorie Taylor Greene made a couple weeks ago that she was arguing with Donald Trump before she left Congress, and she said, "A lot of my friends are going to get hurt." So when you think of that, when you think of that statement, and people who support this current administration, and in particular support Donald Trump, is Marjorie Taylor Greene lying about that? Right? Is she lying about that? So the new wrinkle to this, as I just read, was that it wasn't just Jeffrey and Ghislaine's ring. They were just like procurers, lead generators, right? General manager sitting at the top was the president. The president. I just saw somebody say this. The Clintons are refusing to testify? No, they're not. No, they're actually not, Josie. They said release everything. So now I'm going to play sound for you. You're going to hear from Sasha. I will warn you that it's graphic. I can't avoid that, but we need to be hearing from victims. I can't trigger warn you enough. It is the circumstance that we're here with, but I'm going to play it. Let me just make sure I've got the right one here. I went through these, and some of them are worse than others, but so this is Sasha Riley being interviewed, and here's the sound. Trigger warnings.
Where they were filming us. It was me and a girl that I knew that I had been trafficked with in other venues. And while we were filming, they came in and shot her in the head. So killed her, obviously. So that would be...
Was that the runaway?
Can we turn off comments, guys?
That was another girl, and I can't even remember her name. Yeah. The runaway was tortured to death in a duplex in Enterprise, Alabama. My parents did that, and that wasn't on film, not her being tortured, but that was that black girl that I'm telling you about that later on Michael Bayless had talked to me about. But they went and got her because they were afraid that this was after the investigation in Tennessee, and they were afraid that they would go down for child pornography. So they were wanting to kill her, and then they were wanting to get rid of me via an accident, but they couldn't because they had already tried to kill me several times. They had the incident.
as we're listening to this, and I got some news, Jolie, I didn't mean to step on you. It does look like there's reporting that the Clintons are refusing to testify. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But I want to point this out. What does Sasha Riley have to gain by going public with this? I mean, considering what he grew up in, considering the environment where people were literally being trafficked and murdered for their participation in these activities, leave no trail, so to speak. What does he have to gain? He only has everything to lose, including his life. We're talking about speaking out against some of the most powerful people in our country and ultimately the world, including our current president. What does he have to gain? So I'm sure people are going to say that, he's out for what? What does he have to gain? I only wanted to turn the comments off because I just didn't want people to be re-traumatized. So I'm happy to engage, but I just want to make sure that we can get through this. Again, what does he have to gain? Nothing. So here it continues.
In Texas, involving a Chevy van, there was another instance in Texas where my dad threw me into the middle of a pool and said, sink or swim. And somebody saw it and called the sheriff. So there was a police report on that. And then there was a third instance in Texas where my dad threw me down a flight of stairs. And that one fractured my skull. Now, there may have been other things that happened as well, but I remember those three were enough that they generated an investigation. Yeah. There were enough things that happened in Texas that my dad moved from Texas to Tennessee and then got in trouble in Tennessee and then got in trouble in Tennessee and then moved to Alabama, got in trouble in Alabama, and then we just moved one more time.
And you're talking about
Alabama.
Your adoptive dad, William Kyle Riley, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we can turn the comments back on. So, at this point, none of us who are, and here's the difference, right? The difference between people on the left and people on the right. Or I'm not even, this shouldn't even be a left or right thing. People who want the release of this information. There's way too many. I've always believed where there's smoke, there's eventually fire. Yeah, Sasha is a veteran, a decorated Iraqi veteran, by the way, a decorated Iraqi veteran. So this is the question I have for people that are in denial that Trump has anything to do with this. I'd like you to look that Iraqi veteran in the eye, or if you could, look that decorated Iraqi veteran in the eye and tell him he's lying. I cannot believe the courage of this individual to come out after all these years, his own family. And I want to thank Michelle, because Michelle has shared some excerpts with me from Virginia Dufresne's book. And Michelle, you're probably thinking the same thing I am. It tracks. I mean, Virginia Dufresne's own father trafficked her. That's how bad this network is. Right? He had to be, she eventually confronted him and it turned violent. Why would we not believe him? You're right, Lisa, he's got absolutely nothing to gain from this. Nothing to gain. So again, the names that have been mentioned in this report include Donald Trump, Andy Biggs, Jim Jordan, Lindsey Graham, and Clarence Thomas. Once again, the evidence is ample. Pornography films, videos, CPS reports, FBI reports on WKR, his stepfather, and a military report involving the court-martial of a fellow soldier found with child porn depicting Sasha. So his fellow soldier, right? His fellow soldier was busted having CPS material on one of his devices. And then that CPS material included Sasha, someone he was serving with. Now, he may not have known that, but how ironic. Much of the evidence has been suppressed, some attainable by FOIA. But what must be understood is that corroborative evidence is supplemental. The corroborative evidence supports the truthful testimony, and truthful testimony of what was seen and heard and experienced is not only evidence, but among the most important evidence. So this officer, this other military member, was court-martialed for the possession of CPS, that CPS included images of Sasha. So obviously the information exists. I think that is the most damning component of all of it, because it just proves the evidence of this material, right? The corroborative evidence supports a truthful testimony, and truthful testimony of what was seen and heard and experienced is not only evidence, but among the most important evidence. And while truthful testimony and supporting evidence is important and evidence of truth, the truth itself is evidence, essential evidence, primary evidence. And the just system of justice, victim credibility must never, ever be considered a criteria or prerequisite or requisite of justice at all. A system where the credibility of the victim is considered a criteria or requisite or prerequisite for pursuing justice is a fallacy. A system where the victim's credibility is demonized instead of the perpetrator's guilt, rightly determined and punished in respect to and in honor of the victim, is demonic. A system where the victim's credibility is demonized is demonic. That's, to me, that's kind of what this is about, right? It's the whole thing. In our system, right? In the way that our world works, when we speak in terms of victims' rights, victims are always the one that are blamed. Case in point, Renee Good. It wouldn't have happened to her if she wasn't there. It's the same type of justification that if a woman walked into a bar, was raped in a bathroom, she wouldn't have been raped if she wasn't there. I mean, and yet people couldn't vote for Kamala Harris because they didn't like her laugh. People couldn't vote for her because they didn't like her economic plan. There's additional reporting, not on this specifically, we'll revisit this in a second, but Mark Elias, who works for Democracy Docket, has been doing the work. And he's been unpacking various elements of the whole Trump Epstein scandal. And now there's more details connected to this, that Trump was at the top of the pinnacle, right? Again, the injury, I just want to read this. I asked one of my mods to pull this up, and I'm going to read more about it in just a second. So the summarize of the injury that Mr. Trump maintained, or I should say sustained. Where is it? Sasha and his friend were told that they could do whatever they wanted, so they were having schmecks when a bunch of armed men busted into the room. They held Sasha at gunpoint while they schmorchered, then unalived the girl. Then Trump walked in and was going to torture Sasha. Sasha decided he was done with Trump and was going to unalive him. Trump wanted Sasha to have sex with him, and so when he laid down on his stomach, Sasha took the tent pole that was in the room, put the condom on it, and put it in Trump's rectum. Then he kneed it as hard as he could. Trump had to be airlifted out of the party. Who are we going to believe? Who are we going to believe? Are we going to believe that? So can we not believe the words of survivors under any circumstance? Like under any circumstance, no matter what? I will ask again for people who are questioning this. Listen, these are allegations, okay? I am going to choose to believe Sasha, okay? I believe victims. I believe survivors. I believe women. That is the choice that I'm going to make. The challenge that the right finds themselves in now is that you are going to make a decision. If Here it is. You're going to have the president who has had numerous sexual assault accusations against him, civil liability convictions, court settlements, all kinds of stories about abuse, a track record of this shit, a track record of it, right? Name all over the Epstein files. Everywhere you look, he's all over it. There's no denying that. You're going to either believe him with all that I just explained, or believe a decorated Iraqi veteran. Okay? A decorated Iraqi veteran who, by the way, who appeared in CPS imagery that was found on one of his fellow soldiers, and that fellow soldier was court-martialed because he had it. So then you've got evidence of to corroborate what Sasha had said about the victimization, the fact that he was a child when it happened. He was told that girls are dispensable, but boys are hard to find. Ask yourself what you're going to believe. So this reporting from the New York Times about Bill and Hillary, I haven't read this yet, so I'll just read it to you first time. Facing contempt threat, Clintons refused to testify in Jeffrey inquiry. The couple denounced the efforts by Representative James Comer, the chairman of the Oversight Committee, to force them to appear, setting the stage for a legal battle. Bill and Hillary Clinton refused today to testify in the House's Jeffrey Epstein investigation, escalating a months-long battle with Rep. James Comer, Republican of Kentucky, and effectively daring him to follow through on his threats to hold them in contempt of Congress. Quote, every person has to decide when they have seen or had enough and are ready to fight for this country, its principles, and its people, no matter the consequences. The Clintons wrote in a lengthy letter to Mr. Comer, which was obtained by the New York Times. For us, now that's the time. This is the letter. I'll read it to you. This comes from Bill and Hillary, dated today. Chairman Comer, we want to take a moment, given everything, to address you directly. This past year has seen our government engage in unprecedented acts, including against our own citizens. People have been seized by masked federal agents from their homes, their workplace, and the streets of their communities. Students and scientists with visas permitting them to study and work here have been deported without due process. The people who laid siege to the U.S. Capitol have been pardoned and called heroes. Agencies vital to the country's national security have been dismantled. Universities, media companies, and law firms have been subjected to threats to their funding, access, and licensing unless they made concessions and surrendered their right to constitutional protected free speech. American troops have been deployed on the streets of our towns and cities. The Justice Department has been used as a weapon at the direction of the president to pursue political opponents, and most recently and searingly, an ICE agent murdered an unarmed mother only days ago. Every person has to decide when they have seen or had enough and are ready to fight for this country, its principles, and its people, no matter the consequences. For us, now is that time. We are lucky by virtue of the position we held and the protections afforded by them, but we are not blind. Every day, we see the country we have dedicated our lives to improving take step after step after step backwards. As chairman of this powerful congressional committee, you have immense power to target anyone and subject them to closed-door interrogation and more. The decisions you have made and the priorities you have set as chairman regarding the Epstein investigation have prevented progress in discovering the facts about the government's role. The facts speak for themselves. You subpoenaed 8 people in addition to us. You dismissed 7 of those 8 without any of them saying a single word to you. You made no attempt to force them to appear. In fact, since you started your investigation last year, you've interviewed a total of 2 people. 2. A legal analysis prepared by 2 law firms and provided to you yesterday makes clear your subpoenas are legally invalid. You claim your subpoenas are inviolate when they are used against us, yet were silent when the sitting president took the same position. As a former president, barely more than 3 years ago, we call on you to release that analysis to the public to allow them to see how this is yet another example of the casual disregard of the law of the land. All the while, you have done nothing with your oversight capacity to force the DOJ to follow the law and release all its Jeffrey files, including any material regarding us as we have publicly called for. Over the last year in the House, extending health care for Americans in any state succeeded only because enough Republicans joined with Democrats. The fact that the public we are seeing the fact that the public and we are seeing any of the Department of Justice Epstein files is only because 4 Republicans out of 220 joined every Democrat to reach the minimum number of members to force a vote. You are not one of those 4. Even now, despite the Department of Justice failure to follow the law the Congress passed, you have chosen not to consider subpoenaing the sitting Attorney General to follow the law. Despite everything that needs to be done to help our country, you are up. Okay. Everybody keep tapping like crazy. We just got a violation for harassment. Whatever. Keep reading. Keep tapping like crazy. Engage in the live. You love the TikTok shop. Despite everything that's needed to be done to help our country, you are on the cusp of bringing Congress to a halt to pursue a rarely used process literally designed to result in our imprisonment. This is not the way this is not one of our American ills, and we will forcefully defend ourselves. Indeed, bringing the Republicans' cruel agenda to a standstill while you work harder to pass a contempt charge against us. Indeed, bringing the Republicans' cruel agenda to a standstill while you work hard to pass a contempt charge against us than you have done on your investigation this past year would be our contribution to fighting the madness. We have tried to give you little information. We have tried to give you the little information we have. We've done so because Jeffrey's crimes were horrific. If the government didn't do all it could to investigate and prosecute these crimes for whatever reason, that should be the focus of your work. To learn why and to prevent that from happening ever again. There is no evidence that you are doing so. Instead, you have forced the victims to relive their painful experience while doing little to give them and everybody else what's deserved, the truth and justice. There's no plausible explanation for what you are doing other than partisan politics. You accepted the least from those who know the most, but demand the most from those who know the least. Jury's out on that. To say you can't complete your work without speaking to us is simply bizarre. You've asked what we know. To answer your inquiry, we are providing you with the same or more than the 7 of the other 8 individuals you subpoenaed regarding the handling of the files, which may be why you have not publicly released their written statements. We expect that you will say it's not enough. We expect you'll reject it. You may even set out an empty chair or stand in front of the cameras and outright dismiss what we have provided. We expect you will direct your committee to seek and hold us in contempt. You may even release irrelevant, decades-old photos that you hope will embarrass us. You will say your caucus and the speaker and the president are behind you 100%. We hope, perhaps in vain, that they will not allow you to single-handedly hijack the Congress by unilaterally making this decision for your colleagues, your party, and our country. You will say it is not our decision to make, but we have made it. Now you have to make yours. We are prepared to make our case to your 45 committee members, and if need be, more. Importantly, we will also defend ourselves in the public arena and ensure this country knows exactly what you are doing and why you are doing so, instead of helping the American people who need this Congress's work and protection. For most people, maybe even the bulk of the Congress, today will be the first they learn of this dispute. We are confident that any reasonable person in our country, in or out of Congress, will see, based on everything we release, that what you are doing is trying to punish those who you see as your enemies and to protect those you think are your friends. Continue to mislead Americans about what is truly at stake, and you will learn that the Americans are better at finding the truth than you are at burying it. Continuing to pursue auto pens instead of penning laws Americans need, and you will learn that you are signing away any remaining chance of being on the right side of history. Continue to abet the dismantling of America, and you will learn that it takes more than a wrecking ball to demolish the Americans have built for over 250 years. Sincerely, Bill and Hillary Clinton. So, I am not a defender of Bill Clinton at all. I am absolutely not a defender of his. But he brings up a good point. He went out publicly a couple weeks ago and said, release everything. It's got my name on it. I don't care. Go ahead. Release all of it. Do it. Do it. Release all of it. Release all of it. Yeah, they're slimy again, but release all of it. So I didn't realize that there were 7 other subpoenas, and the only one that James Comer's talking about is for the Clintons. It's wild, right? But nothing to see here, of course. And at the core of this, right? At the core of this is there are people in our government right now with the ability to release anything and everything that we know that is in the possession of the DOJ. They have released like what, 1% of the information? There are people in our government today that are protecting the perpetrators of these alleged crimes against girls and boys. I just want that to land on MAGA. You protectors of women, you supposed protectors of girls, you're supposed protectors of life. Where is your anger? Where is it? Where's your anger? Where's your anger? You're right, little bull creep. The party of family values. You guys know me, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, right? But I think back to one of the pinnacles of the entire Q movement was this global cabal of P3DOs. They were right. They were fucking right about it, weren't they? They were right about it. Like I always tell you guys, conspiracy theories work because there's a kernel of truth connected to it. We're just like, this is fucking wild. Like, I don't believe the Pizzagate shit. I don't believe the drinking of the blood, although who the fuck knows what we're going to find out. But they were right. You're right. Well, we can't say it wasn't the libs. I don't give a fuck who's involved. I don't care who's involved. But there's certainly a global, it seems like it's obvious that there's a global network of this shit. Right? Question is, what do we do about it? It's going to require, currently, it's going to require Republicans in Congress to stand up. Currently. Beyond that, it's us. It's a we the people moment. I found this just briefly. Hang on a second. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the cause which impel them to separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that are among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form. You guys know what that is, right? You all know what that is. Our country was founded on the principles of ignoring and pushing back against an unjust government or an unjust ruler or an unjust monarch. Yeah, it's just ink on paper. That's what this is one of those we the people moments. And you know what I think about too? I think about oftentimes how we see, the insurrectionist traitors who had their 1776 flags. That message is for us. It's not for them. It's for us. What is the reaction to this? What are people going to do? I can't sit here and advocate for, everybody has to make their own decision. But I'm at a point where popping off is likely. We cannot just let this shit continue. We can't. We can't. I'm going to play you some sound again from Mark Elias because he sat down and he interviewed with Brian Taylor Cohen, and because I think there's more to the story, obviously. Here you go.
Mark, we have perhaps the most shocking revelation of the Epstein files that we've gotten thus far. Can you explain this new announcement at the hands of Trump's DOJ?
This was prior to this whole Sasha Riley thing, so there you go.
Yeah, in a bombshell filing in a federal court in New York, the cover-up has been blown open on the Epstein files. We were told by the legacy media that bought hook, line, and sinker what the Department of Justice was selling, which was that there was this rolling production of Epstein files. And, they may be a little bit behind, but they're getting those files out. Remember when they released the first batch on December 19th, which was the date that all of the files were supposed to be released? The legacy media said, well, they didn't get all of them out, but they got a good chunk. Well, now we know the truth. And here it is, everybody. Listen up. The Department of Justice is zillion documents that have not yet been reviewed and not produced. How many have they produced? A little over 12,000. What that means is that the Department of Justice has produced 0.6% of the records of Jeffrey Epstein that were supposed to be released by December 19th. Okay, I'm not saying 6%. I'm saying 0.6% have been produced. It is not that the Department of Justice has produced records, but it has to produce more. It is accurate to say the Department of Justice has withheld, has stonewalled 99.4% of the records and has lulled the legacy media to sleep by doling out a mere 0.6% of them. That is an absolute bombshell. It should blow a lid off this cover-up, and it should be the final straw that breaks the camel back in the legacy media's willingness to go along and get along with this administration as this Epstein file has grown and grown and grown.
Mark, I hate to take the most cynical view of this, but when it's the cops themselves who are committing the crime, and there's no higher authority than the DOJ, are we just left in a situation where Trump's DOJ can just basically defy the law to whatever extent they want, and there's really no bulwark against any of this?
Look, I think this law needs to be enforced. You and I, people can go back and go to earlier videos we did where we talked about the noncompliance on December 19th. And by the way, you should do that, and you should be subscribed to this channel because the legacy media was feeding you a bunch of horse shit about how DOJ was complying and that they just needed, I think the estimate, as you recall, a couple extra weeks. Well, we're way beyond already a couple extra weeks, and they use less than 1% of the records.
Yeah.
So is the law being enforced? Absolutely. Would it help? Would it be an essential service to the viewers and the readers of the media if legacy media treated this as the absolute contemptuous behavior of a lawless administration? Yes, that would be helpful. Would it be helpful if the media pointed out that Donald Trump's attorney general said last February that she wanted all the files delivered to her by February 28th, and she instructed that the FBI do that? Yeah, that would be helpful. But Brian, you know the truth as well as I do. You know why people watching this video know about that February 28th deadline? They only know about it because you and I did a video about it a couple of weeks ago, right? We were blowing the whistle on this based on publicly available information.
Humbly speaking, so did we.
And yet, much of legacy media is asleep at a switch. So again, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Make sure you follow this Democracy Watch feed in particular, and hit the bell to make sure you're alerted when new content is posted.
And I would also add, for folks who are watching right now, if you want to follow this stuff, the first outlet to cover any of this stuff is always Democracy Docket. So I'm going to put the link to Democracy Docket right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Not just a great way to follow what's going on as soon as it breaks, but also an excellent way to support the invaluable work that Mark and his team are doing, not just in the media, but also in the courts, where they have more than 60 cases right now against the overreach by this Republican Party. Mark, it's worth asking here, because you and I are both, coming at this from a media perspective. Dan Bongino just left the FBI to go once again become a podcaster. He built his brand on this idea that he was going to go in there and hold the powerful to account and expose this cadre of elitists who aren't susceptible, who are immune from the same laws that the rest of us are, and they commit heinous crimes with impunity, and didn't do anything. Perpetuated this cover up along with Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, all the rest of the people in Trump's DOJ, and is now back onto Twitter, basically beating his chest about how he's some crusader against grifters. I mean, like, you couldn't write this stuff. And so I'm just curious what your reaction to the fact that Dan Bongino joined the FBI as, again, this champion for accountability, got none, is engaged in a cover-up where we still have, 99.4% of the files hidden, and then thinks he's going to jump back into the world of podcasting where he can cosplay as some white knight here.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised this because, again, if you go back in time when Dan Bongino started, there were these reports that he might not last long. You remember there was like a long weekend where he kind of like, it was reported that he might be resigning, and there was speculation. I just want to be clear. It was nothing but speculation. But
we're listening to Brian Tyler Cohen interviewing Mark Elias in the Democracy Docket. Mark Elias, you may know Mark Elias. He's been the one. Mark Elias, I don't think, is ever going to get enough credit for what he's done. He has been the one on the front lines pushing back against the Trump administration's attempt to suppress votes. He's been doing this for a very, very long time. He's won numerous cases protecting your rights. He's one of these people that doesn't ask for attention. He just does the fucking work. He deserves a lot of credit.
Essentially, Bongino was a true believer in the Epstein files and the Epstein cover-up and actually wanted them released. And it is possible that that he has been there, as you say, going along, getting along, but at some point found out that only 0.6% of the records had been released, and that wasn't what the administration was saying, right? The administration has been telling us that they are diligently producing these records. Remember the bullshit stories the legacy media fed us as if they were stenographers of the White House about how it was an all hands on deck, 400 lawyers, working over Christmas. It was as if like they were just plowing through the last of the records.
Right.
That's not true. None of that. Like they are just looking at the beginning of the record.
What he's alluding to there, in case you didn't know, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, is that the Department of Justice told you that they had recruited 400 lawyers to go through this in an attempt to say, see, we're doing the work. No. That was, again, to throw their people off the scent. So we're going to go so far to throw our people off the scent that we're going to kidnap a president from Venezuela. We're going to saber rattle about Iran. We're going to saber rattle about Greenland. We're going to promise things that we can't promise, rebate checks, Doge checks, tariff checks, et cetera, et cetera. I want people to think just for a second. I said this before I played the sound. It cannot be lost, though. Wag the dog, exactly, Ruthie. The extent to which people in this administration are going to protect the predators, the men, in many cases, women who preyed on, and again, if the reporting is true from Sasha Riley and their testimony, murdered and tortured young boys and girls. I want that to sink in for the most dedicated, hardcore Trumper, because you're in here every single day. That is what your administration is doing. They're pulling out all stops to protect the people who committed these crimes. You wouldn't be protecting them if there wasn't something to hide. Donald Trump would have released his grades. Donald Trump would have released his grades if they weren't bad. Why did we cover up economic data if it was good? Why did they literally remove elements of traditionally reported economic data to make the numbers match? Why would they do that if it was good? Why would they continue to make why would the president sit behind the Resolute desk and tell you that prices are low when the prices are going up? But the auto pen. It's taxes too, but the auto pen, right? Right? Yeah, okay.
Records. So maybe, but just maybe, Bongino thought this is too much for even me to bear. And I will go back, as you say, into the...
Right, his actual doctor report, not the one that was written by Dr. Feelgood? Yeah.
Podcasting industry where there is given all of the intra-nascent fights on the right between the various factions, he may think, look, there's an opportunity for me there.
I mean, do you think that he's going to be able to go back to his audience with a straight face after having been a party to this administration that is engaged in the biggest cover-up of a pedophile ring in American history and have an ounce of credibility?
Look, I think this is not just the biggest cover-up of a pedophile ring. I think this is one of the biggest cover-ups of a White House.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just like take a step back here, everybody. Let's not normalize this. Let's not let the Overton window shift. Donald Trump was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein's. Donald Trump had a lot of emails with Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump, according to reporting and what came out in the releases, drew graphics or sketches and poems for Jeffrey Epstein, right? So that's all what's going on in the background. And at the same time that's happening, Donald Trump is doing everything he can to keep his administration from reviewing and releasing the Epstein files. And at every stage, whether it's Dan Bongino or it is Pam Bondi asking that all the records be sent to her by February 28th, or it's House Republicans, or it's his allies on the outside, right? At every stage, he is doing everything he can to downplay them, say they're not important, he didn't know Jeffrey Epstein, it was all just Democrats, right? Like he's got a million excuses. And here we are now, a year into his administration, and we are starting to learn the truth of how much has been covered up. 2 million records have been covered up. 2 million records have not been produced on the schedule that a federal law said they had to be produced. And so this is a national outrage. It is hard to overstate how much the Epstein files have likely driven so many policy decisions in this administration, how it has driven personnel decisions, how it has driven the timing of news releases, how it has distracted the president from other things. I think when the history books are written, the through line of so much of what Donald Trump did that was outrageous and terrible in his first administration is going to have an Epstein connection.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's worth asking here, is there any recourse for someone like Pam Bondi or Trump or Kash Patel, the people who perpetuated this cover-up, in defiance of a law that Trump himself signed, the Epstein file?
You're listening to Brian Tyler Cohen interview Mark Elias. Mark Elias from Democracy Docket. Mark Elias, his law firm, has been fighting for your rights for a long time. Man is literally heroic in what he has done that will never get enough coverage. He's never asked for it, but he deserves it.
Transparency Act, or was it a mistake that Congress didn't include any punishment, any sanctions in the law, which kind of, even if they're able to go to court and compel their release, whether they do it in civil court, if they find somebody who has standing, like the victims, for example, or members of Congress who signed the law, was it a mistake that there was no enforcement mechanism, that there was no sanctions included in the law? And how does that make you think about laws like this as we head, into the future?
I mean, what it means is that you can never act in good faith with Donald Trump. There were a number of provisions of this law saying, for example, to withhold privileged information or classified information.
Right. He's just going to distort and manipulate that.
Right. Like we just know, right. Like, so to your point about a forcing mechanism or an enforcement mechanism, like that, I think was probably the mistake. I think that if the law were to be, redone, the answer would have been that the Epstein files have to be produced on an unredacted basis in full, without any sorting at all, to a special master, maybe a retired judge, and that they would then oversee redaction and production on a timely basis. I think the assumption that the Department of Justice would act in good faith in processing and releasing these records was once again believing that there was any good faith to be relied on.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly put. So then it's worth asking here, is there any, as far as any?
So he referenced what's referred to as a special master. Many of us had probably ever heard the term special master the first time. That goes back to the Mar-a-Lago documents case. There was a special master. I do. You're right. I do need a lung massage. There was a special master assigned to the documents that Aileen Cannon had put in place because there were so many documents that they had to go through. It's not technically a third party. I guess it would be a third party, yeah, but it's going to be a retired judge or a retired high-ranking lawyer, something to that effect. And that's what they've been pushing for. Okay, well, you guys are obviously not fucking doing this. You're violating the law. They've broken 3 laws so far that I can name off the top of my head. The first is they were supposed to release everything by December the 19th. The second was they were supposed to include let me back up. They were supposed to release everything by December the 19th. 15 days later, they were supposed to release explanations as to why the documents were redacted. So I guess it's 2 laws, right? So they've broken 2 laws. It's not like they just haven't gotten around to it. They've broken federal law. Law signed into law by the president. Unanimous votes across the board to release the files. December the 19th was the date to release everything. 2 weeks later, they had to have an explanation as to why things were redacted. So not only have they not released everything, there's been no explanation from Pam Bondi as to why the information's been redacted. Party of law and order, right? Okay.
Any, civil suits or anything moving forward that would at least, even if there's not any sanctions, even if there's not any, any way to hold these people to account civilly, is there at least any effort to compel the release of these files on a quicker timeline than what we're seeing right now? Because at this rate, I mean, if we're almost a month past the deadline and we've got not even 1% of the files released, I mean, we're looking at, we'd be lucky to have them even by the time Trump's term is over.
Yeah.
At this rate.
That's right. I mean, and think about it this way, Brian. I mean, does anyone really believe that Donald Trump is under more pressure now than he was, for example, on December 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th?
No, especially given the fact that now it looks like we're involved in a regime change war in South America.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I'm not connecting dots here. I'm not going to say that.
But no new wars. Okay. Listen, we'll finish this in a second. This is one of the reasons that I say that MAGA voters are so fucking stupid. Okay? Because you are so blinded by your loyalty to that man that you are unaware of what is happening right in front of you. All this transparency, where you claim that the president was going to be the most transparent, he's going to tell us everything, he's going to show us everything, he's going to blow the cover off the deep state. I got news for you, MAGA. Sit down. Come closer. Trump is the deep state. He and his administration are the deep state. See, this is the problem with projection, right? Confessions. Him telling you that it was everybody else. Him telling you that it's their fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. He is the deep state. And there is no deeper state, in my opinion, than protecting fucking predators. You can never again, ever, you can never again say that you are the party of the sanctity of family values. Never again, ever again can you say you're the party of law and order. Never again. Never again can you say that you truly care about boys and girls sports. Are you fucking kidding me? Less than what, 1/10 of 1% of the population, and that's your fucking target because you've been told who to hate. You've been told to hate the trans community because you were told they are a threat. Because you were told they are harming women and girls. Where is your anger for the actual people who are harming women and girls? And in your world, if someone was attacked, the victim, survivor of one of those crimes, you wouldn't believe them anyway. And boys, yes, thank you, Tay-Tay. You wouldn't believe them anyway. Again, it's the same argument I made before. It's the same analogy, and I know, MAGA, this is going to hurt for you. But when you say that Renee Good would not have lost her life if she wasn't there, you use the exact same fucking logic when a woman is raped in a bar. If she wasn't there, it wouldn't have happened. Do you understand why we tell you that you're in a cult? Do you understand why we tell you and how just hypocritical and just completely fucking bullshit? How completely just diabolical and just, I don't even know if there's enough adjectives to describe it. Do you understand? Yeah, right, Terry. And if she complied, right. If the woman in the bar had just complied to her assaulter, it would have been fine, right? You see?
Particular action like Venezuela relates to this thing with the Epstein files or vice versa. I am going to tell you, though, that when history is written and we get access to more information, it's going to turn out a lot more stuff was driven off of these Epstein files than people think. But to your question, this could drag on almost indefinitely, which is his plan. Yeah. And everybody who is involved in holding Donald Trump accountable needs to be thinking about what kind of litigation they can bring. That may be members of Congress.
Correct.
It may be victims. It may be the estate. It may be journalists or reporters. I mean, hey, how about that, legacy media? How about you guys go FOIA all the records and then file a lawsuit or something? And do something other than both sides of this and bury it and instead cover, Joe Biden's pension size. I read that in a newspaper, or that Joe Biden was on vacation, right? How about you focus on this cover up, and maybe that would spur the administration into moving faster. But I think, to your question, everybody has to be thinking about what.
Get the slurps now. That guy screaming that there's no mobility, man. Bro got to cross the open field using shield bubbles. Alrighty. 1v1, huge circle. Huge circle. But we do got a Kenny, so we might get 2 tries. The game started and ended on Prospering Peaks.
Welcome back. Suppression of media, one of the tenets of fascism. Welcome back, everybody. Oh, I know, how dare they? I know. Yep. Thank you for getting us back here, friends. We almost made it to 1 million likes over there, too. That was wild. We almost made it. We were like within 5. We get 5,000 likes away from 1 million, and that's what took us down, but it doesn't matter. I know they can't handle the truth. That's what this whole thing's about, sadly. But thanks for coming back, guys. I just had a few more things I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to bring. I know there were some guests in the guest box. I didn't get a chance to bring them up. So if you did request and you want to come back up and talk, feel free. I guess to summarize, that soundbite was just about done. And like I said before, first of all, if you're just finding me here, this is our backup account. If you want to follow along here, you can. Please consider joining this particular team. Appreciate y'all very, very much. Appreciate you guys. Keep tapping. I don't know how else to talk about this without reminding people of what's at stake here, right? It's not anything. This is not political. This is not political. It should not be. I should say it should not be political. It is, but what we are talking about is the biggest scandal cover-up in American politics history. And you know what? I might go as far to say is this could be one of the biggest scandals ever because of what it is and because who's involved and because of how big this network has become. The obvious nature of it, right? What is at stake? What's at stake? The lives taken, innocent children, lives taken, and the cover-up of people. This department, and why is mainstream media? I know why. People are protecting the predators, right? That's what they're doing. People are protecting the predators. Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming back. What does it take? An Iraqi war veteran, a decorated Iraqi war veteran. Do we not believe him now? Is that where we are? We're not going to believe him? And I don't know how much, the 2 million or so documents that have yet to be released. Again, the party of the rule of law. I believe, Sasha Riley, I believe victims. And I've said this before, and this analogy seems to work for me in explaining these kinds of things. If there are 100 people standing in front of me, and I know one of those people is lying about their ability to get SNAP benefits, I still want to guarantee everybody has SNAP benefits, even if I know one person is lying. Conversely, you ask the same people on the right, there's the same scenario. There's 100 people standing in front of them and they know one person is lying. They're going to make sure that nobody eats. So here we are once again. How many examples of crimes, allegations, whatever that might be, witness testimony, statements, et cetera, against Trump and others? All of it is a lie? Every single person's testimony is a lie? All the court records are lies? All the witness statements are lies? All of it? They're all lying? And the only person that's telling the truth is Donald Trump? No new wars? Right? I want to point it out that the promises that are continually being made to Trump voters, he's never kept one. Never kept one. Now you can say it was ICE and immigration enforcement. Now you can say that, but it was never you. What you were told was they're only going after the worst of the worst. Is Renee Good the worst of the worst? Really? Is a pastor who was at gunpoint by an ICE officer? Is he the worst of the worst? Are people expressing their constitutional rights, standing in streets of American cities, protesting what they see? Are they the worst of the worst? Keith Porter? Is Keith Porter the worst of the worst? Right? Where is the line? I don't know why the fuck I asked that question. Scrap that. I wanted to play this sound. So this is Hank Kunneman. Okay? Hank Kunneman is a self-described MAGA pastor. Okay? He's a MAGA pastor. And this is what he had to say about Venezuelan oil. Are you ready? Here you go.
Venezuela for the oil. Yes, this is true that there is that which has been brought to the forefront of this earthly battle. But the enemy has sought and was seeking to bring war and to bring conflict through Venezuela and to control the oil of the earth. But the spiritual oil And the natural oil does not belong to the forces of darkness or to those who thought that they could bring a one world order. This is my reset. And the oil of the natural and the oil of the spirit is mine, says the Lord.
The spirit of Venezuela oil is mine, says the Lord. Yeah. Yep. Nothing to see here, though. I want you to hear Caroline Leavitt in trying to defend the rhetoric from the Trump administration for years was about no new wars. We're not going to send our sons and daughters over on Pete Hegseth's brain, only our sons. We're not going to send our sons overseas. We're not going to have them engage in any more endless wars, no more regime change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until we actually do it. And here's Caroline.
Ed. Thanks, Caroline. So in order to get these oil companies to invest billions in Venezuela, how will the U.S. reassure that their workers will be safe in Venezuela? Could there be troops involved?
At this point in time, as you know, there are no troops on the ground in Venezuela. The president, of course, reserves the right to use the United States military if necessary. What? It's not something he wants to do. Diplomacy is always the first option, as you saw. He tried that with Nicolas Maduro, but unfortunately, he was an illegitimate dictator and an unserious person. And so President Trump authorized this law enforcement operation, and now Nicolas Maduro is sitting in a prison cell in New York. So certainly the president is going to do what's in the best interests of the American people, and that includes workers from our energy and oil industry as well.
I'm sorry, in the best interest of the American people, so would that include sending the United States military, putting boots on the ground in Venezuela to protect the oil industry so that Donald Trump and his cronies can refresh themselves and make more money? As a reminder, just as a reminder, MAGA, for those of you in the back that are just finding me here, just as a reminder, the Trump administration and this relationship with the oil companies, your taxpayer dollars, you America First fucks, your taxpayer dollars, because of the tax breaks given to oil companies, the big ass subsidies, is paying for U.S. oil companies to go to Venezuela to invest, those that will. They will make money, billions, if not more. You're not getting any of that money back. So what you fucking ignorant simps have now discovered, the reality is that your brothers, your family members, your sons could potentially be on the ground in Venezuela, protecting the interests of oil companies as they enrich themselves. What? But God told him so. God needs the oil, apparently. A couple of statements from the fucking president. This is another retirement? Yep, another retirement from the House. Okay, got a couple more statements here for you. People that are against, I'll do it for this because why not?
People that are against tariffs are fools. We are now the richest, most respected country in the world with almost no inflation, a record stock market price, 401ks are highest ever. We're taking in trillions of dollars and will soon be paying down our enormous debt. $37 trillion. Record investment in the USA, plants and factories going up all over the place, a dividend of at least $2,000 a person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everyone.
That statement came out in November. Anybody seen that check? So then when he's interviewed, right? So that was in November of last year, telling you you're going to get your check. And then the New York Times interview that happened on January 7th, he said, yeah, eventually by the end of the year, you'll get your check. Are you guys that gullible? Here's the follow-up to that.
All the money left over from the $2,000 payments made to low and middle income USA citizens from the massive tariff income pouring into our country from foreign countries, which will be substantial, will be used to substantially pay down national debt. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT.
So if we had the money back in November and you were told you were going to get your $2,000 check and you were told you're going to get it by the end of the year, last year, and now the president says, I'll just fucking play it for you. Now the president says, well, yeah, I mean, you'll get it, but you're not going to get it until the end of the year. So what do we do with that? How does that work? CXJR, you see, the thing is, friend, I don't think I'm funny. I know I'm funny. And I'm handsome. So there's that. So suck on that. Never mind. So which is it, MAGA? Explain that to us. You were told you're going to get a Doge check. You're not. You're told you're going to get a tariff check by the end of last year. You didn't. You're now being told again in a recent interview with the president that was just a few days ago that you're going to get a check eventually at the end of this year. So are you going to get a check? Are you? Are you going to get a check? You know what? This is what I think you should do. I think you should go on to Kalshi, the betting exchange. I think you should cash in your 401k. I think you should cash in your retirement. I think you should take out a second mortgage on your home. And I think you should invest every single dime on you getting your tariff rebate check. Okay? Every single dollar you have. Every single dollar you have. I want you to sell all your Legos. I want you to sell all of your baseball cards. I want you to mortgage everything you have. I want you to liquidate all of your assets. Your children's college fund, your own retirement funds, your safety net, all of it. All of it. I literally want you to cash in everything. Because if you are so confident that you're going to get this check, then you should make bank. But you won't do it, will you? No, you won't. Will you put your hand up and sign up to go to Venezuela to defend oil companies? Really? Will you? Will you encourage your 18-year-olds that are now eligible for the draft, or to enlist? Would you do that? Would you tell them to enlist? Would you tell them to enlist? Would you? Would you? No. You won't do that either, will you? Why not? Yeah, I should have mentioned the Legos. Good point. I know, Sam. Isn't his crush on me so cute? It is so cute. You have such a crush. I mean, let's be real. I mean, come on. Let's be real. Why not? Well, if you are so convinced that you're going to get your check, then put your money where your mouth is. You can scrape a couple of cents together to invest, right? You should be the ones first in line. You should be telling your children that they should be enlisting right now because we have to go and protect oil companies. No, you won't do that though either. You won't do that either, will you? Of course not. Of course not. A little bit more sound about that. So this is the pinnacle of petty. So you interviewed with Hannity recently, and they're talking about the Nobel Prize again, of all things. Here you go.
The Nobel Prize, her Nobel Peace Prize, to you for liberating her country. Would you accept the Nobel Prize she wants to hand to you?
Well, I understand she's coming in next week sometime. I've heard that she wants to do that. That would be a great honor.
Like, what? He's gonna... What does he think he's going to get the Nobel Peace Prize for? And she can't just give it to him, of course not. What does he think he's going to get it for? Because if you want to say that he ended 8 wars, in your mind, though, those aren't wars. So other countries are at war if they're having border skirmishes and they're lobbing missiles and bombs at each other, but our country's not because Trump told you that? Because he's the first president in United States history to attack 7 countries in 1 year. I think the number is now 8. But that doesn't count as a war. So loss of life under the direction of the president in Venezuela, I think the number's like 36 or so Cuban nationals. That's not a war. That justifies him getting the Peace Prize? ICE thugs roaming the streets of U.S. cities, killing American citizens, that gets him the Peace Prize? Gutting Medicare, Medicaid, ACA benefits as people suffer and will die? It is true. People will die this year because of that. No doubt about it. It's funny, I was thinking about this the other night. I was sitting in the emergency room with my daughter, right? I'm thinking, okay, I knew I had the ACA bill that was coming, and I'm like, oh my, how much time I have to pay this? And I was concerned about insurance, and I'm looking at the cost and the whole 9 yards. I'm thinking, this is fucking maddening. Like I didn't have a second thought that I needed to take her to the hospital. No doubt about it. She's fine. I had to take her to the hospital. There was no doubt in my mind it was going to happen. But there are American families right now having to make those decisions. And we're getting promises of $2,000 checks. And the president is, spending $115 million in 2025 on his golf outings. What? America first, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just making sure. To make sure I understood what America first meant. Because that's not what I thought it meant. I don't normally like to platform Megyn Kelly because she's a despicable human being. But since we spent so much time yesterday talking about Russian propaganda in general, she had something to say that I think is really, really interesting because she's talking about her time at Fox News. Here you go.
Which was a long time, 14 years. I would have known exactly what to do in the wake of Trump's attack in Venezuela, his retrieval, shall we say, to put it in mild terms, of Nicolas Maduro. I would have known that I was supposed to cheerlead it. And I turned on Fox News yesterday, and I'm sorry, but it was like watching Russian propaganda. There was nothing skeptical. What? It was all rah-rah, cheerleading. Yes, let's go.
There you go. Right? You see, even people that are kind of in your orbit, MAGA, like even the people that sort of swim in your cesspool, right, are like, yeah, you guys are being propagandized. Like, no pushback. The Republican Party that I grew up in, but not in, but that I grew up, the Republican Party that existed while I was growing up would have never stood for this. Never in a million fucking years. Using the United States military to go kidnap a foreign leader? Nope. Nope. Tom Tillis is burning the shit down. We have a war powers resolution that passed the Senate. I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. Don't forget, in, 17 days, the government shuts down again. The Trump government shut down round 2. Because they don't want you to have health care. Period. They need the money to continue to fund ICE. And if you ask a struggling American, here's the conversation that I often find myself in. Tell me if I'm wrong. I have been in these conversations with people who've been told that universal health care is socialism and we can't have it, even though the economic argument supports the fact that they would save money. Those people right now are so angry about healthcare. Healthcare. They're so discouraged by the fact that how I would never consider healthcare. Instead, the money that's being cut from programs that will help them. Again, 58% of the people on the ACA live in congressional districts that Donald Trump won. I should say that are represented by Republicans. 77% live in states that Trump won in 2024. Those people who have had their subsidies cut, those subsidies are going to fund ICE. And those folks are cheering it on. Don't fucking tell me you aren't fucking racist fucks. Don't fucking tell me that you're not bloodthirsty, because you are. Plain and fucking simple. Where do we go from here? We do something. So as a reminder again, I've had this idea in my head for a long time, and we're starting to get moving here a little bit. So the Do Something tour involves yours truly using my white privilege, going out on the road, speaking to non-voters, getting people to participate in democracy. 45 million people. So roughly 90 million people didn't vote. I believe they're broken down into two generally large categories. Half are people that are just lazy. Oh yeah, two wings of the same bird. Yeah, blah, fuck this, fuck everybody. That's one group of people. I think that's lazy. I think that's just an excuse not to participate. And then I feel like there's 45 million people, roughly speaking, that just don't feel like government's going to ever work for them, that their voices are not being heard, that all they want to do is raise their family, like most of us, have a job that pays them decently, be able to afford a mortgage, be able to take a vacation, to be able to help their neighbor, to be able to work with dignity, to be able to retire with dignity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the people that I want to talk to. I want to use my white privilege and go to Appalachia. Go to deep red parts of the Rust Belt, parts of the South, wherever that might be. I want to do it. I want to get on the roads in March and April. I want to spend a month doing it. I'm going to need your help though. I cannot do it by myself. I can't fund it myself. I'm going to need to crowdfund. I'm going to need sponsors. I'm going to need help, people who can help along the way. I've contacted indivisible chapters across the country. I've not gotten a lot back. I'm trying to find, I need an agent. I need somebody who's willing to help me coordinate this kind of stuff. I'm going to be relying on you guys to help this. I'm willing to do the work, but I need your help. I think it's too important to not do. We need more people participating in our democracy. If people can just be reminded to say, what are the things that matter to you? What are the things that are important to you? And you know what? If you remove the R and the D and the Republican and the Democrat and the conservative and the liberal, and you just had a conversation that said, you know what? Do you think our healthcare system is broken? Yes. Okay. Have you ever explored what the idea of Medicare for all might look like? No. Here it is. Do you feel like corporations are ripping us off? Do you know that there's been price gouging legislation introduced? Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great if we could have legislation that would keep people from doing that? Don't you feel like there's way too much money in politics? I would agree with you. There's this little thing called Citizens United. Ever heard of it? You haven't? This is what Citizens United is. So then, now that we agree on these principles, because most people would agree, let's talk about who is there to represent you and to why. Now, I agree. The system's not perfect. We got to stop looking for perfection. It's just a conversation. I test drove it in person 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I had a non-voter, and we had a conversation talking about the same stuff. And now we have a date on election day, and she's going to vote. It doesn't take much. I am willing to do the work. I just need your help. I'm going to be asking. I'm going to need your help. We're going to have to crowdfund it. We're going to have to get sponsors. I'm taking the dog on the road with me, so Kipper's going to be like our model. We're going to need all kinds of support. We're going to need tech support. We're going to need, social media support, all kinds of things. I am willing to do this, but I'm going to need your help. There's going to be people in our community. They're going to have direct responsibilities. There's going to be people in our community. They're going to be part of the chain as we travel across the country. I'm willing to go anywhere and everywhere. This is important to me. This is really important to me because I look at my daughter who's about to go to college. We were talking a little bit last night, and she's really freaked out. She is really, really freaked out. And I'm thinking, my job, raising my kid. The hope is I can leave her with something. At this point in my life, I'm struggling just to make sure that I can pay for her college. Hopefully she'll get some scholarships. We're all in the same boat. We're all here. We're all here. We're all living this. We're all living in this together. People say, I want off this ride. Sure we do. But I'm not 28. I'm 58. I got more behind me that I have ahead of me. This is important to me. So if you all are interested, there's lots of ways to help. We're going to be creating, we have an email address. We'll publish that in our Discord. If you want to help, I would just ask that if you really, really want to help, let's make it about the things you can do. We'll be asking for specific things. The biggest thing short term, I want to say it. I need transportation. And the way I have it in my head is that could it be like an RV? Could it be like a camper? Could it be something? Could it be like a Sprinter van? I need a space that I can travel that's big enough for myself and my dog. I got to be able to work from it too, right? So that's part of it. So that's the first thing that I'm looking for. If you know somebody or if you are somebody and you might want to sponsor this, we've got some graphics that we can add. I'll be glad to promote your business and be happy to do it. That's the first thing that I need. So that's my mission. I want to go on the road in April. I want to do it for 30 days. And if the proof of concept works, which I think it will, then I want to extend that to start again in September and go right on up until Election Day. That's the goal. That's what I want to do. If you guys trust me, if you come into my space and you learn something, those that have met me in person, I am the exact same person in person as I am here. I'm just taller in person. So that's it. So that's what I want to do. We've been talking about it for a long time. My mods know how important it is to me. And I want to thank in particular Fish Trucker and Michelle and Sam. We're part of a group chat. We try to put some pieces together. So if you can help, message the mods. And we want to do this. So it's really, really important. How much taller? Well, I'm this tall here. I'm 6'2" in real life. so there you go. I'm 6'2". There you go. Or maybe 6'1.5" now. I feel like I'm getting shorter. But anyway, let me just check. I think I've got everything here that I wanted to cover today. Maybe. The last thing that I'll play to you today is some sound from Pete Buttigieg. Because this is the kind of energy that I like, and the way that Pete delivers messages. It's almost like he makes people feel guilty, which I kind of like. Here you go.
Nome has not yet faced accountability for the Texans who may have lost their lives in the floods last year because it took her days to authorize search and rescue teams. They lost their lives or may have lost their lives over that. Now a Minnesota woman lost her life yesterday in an incident that never should have happened. She should be with her family, alive and well right now. We have an ICE agent who, by the way, is or should have been trained not to be in front of a vehicle and never to shoot into a moving vehicle.
Right.
And yet this happened on her watch. The whole point of Homeland Security is to make this country more stable and safe. And it is very clear on this administration's watch that the opposite is what's happening.
He's right. Here's a little bit more sound from Pete.
Reporters is, this guy does not deserve your support. You supported him, maybe enthusiastically, maybe reluctantly, because you expected him to make your life better off. But he said he was going to do these things and did the opposite. He said he was going to lower costs. He did the opposite. He said he was going to put forward a plan to make your health care more affordable and better. He did the opposite. He said that America would become a more peaceable and safe place on his watch. We are seeing instead how he is deliberately stirring up chaos and turning Americans against each other. People may have supported him for any number of reasons, but he is not delivering even on the reasons he offered to his own supporters, let alone what the majority of Americans actually want and believe.
That message is directly to Trump supporters. See, the way I look at this whole thing in the 2024 and 2028 election is that we can approach this from many, many angles. I know a lot of people want to try to convert MAGA voters. Great. I know a lot of people want to convert more non-MAGA voters, but Republicans. Great. All kinds of people that we can reach out to. My goal is non-voters. That's my target. That's where the Do Something tour is going to, focus on. Now, through osmosis, when we're having these conversations, and I saw a comment. So would I set up camp in like a VFW? Absolutely. In a fucking diner? Sure. I'll have one-on-one conversations. Absolutely. Will I set up a little tent outside and say, ask me anything? Absolutely. I don't care. I am comfortable doing this shit. I've spoken in front of 5,000 people at conferences across the country in my previous life. Again, I'm purpose driven. Humbly speaking, I've got skills to be able to do this shit, and I want to do it, and I'm going to do it. So Pete's target is Trump voters. He's trying to appeal to them, say, listen, this guy does not deserve your vote. He just doesn't. He does not deserve your vote. Why would you continue to support this guy? He doesn't. He lied to you. He told you he was going to give you all these things. Case in point, the $2,000 tariff money. Like, you promised you're going to get a Doge check. You never got it. You're never going to get it. You're not going to get $2,000 checks. It ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. Told you were going to get it at the end of this year. Did you get it at the end of last year? Nope. Do you really think you're going to get it at the end of this year? Nope. Instead, your hikes in premiums are going to support ICE agents killing American citizens on the streets of America. And you're okay with that. And again, I'll remind you of this distinct fact, and then we'll wrap for the day. The cover-up of the Epstein files, we'll call them the Trump files, the cover-up by the federal government is protecting people who perpetrated these crimes, not the victims, not the survivors. Keep that in mind. I really want you to keep that in mind, because what we hear from you is that you don't believe women. So are all of them lying? Are every single one of them lying? Every single one of them who've made credible allegations? Every single one of them who've named names? They're all lying to you? Every one? Every single one. Because that's what you're saying. Because what happens is, if you believe one, then your entire identity explodes on itself. The right loves to accuse the left of identity politics. Your entire movement is identity politics. MAGA is a cult, by definition. It's not opinion, it's fact. It is a fact. There's no doubt about it. So your entire identity is connected to MAGA and thus Donald Trump. And I want you to think about this. When you are a grandparent someday, and like I've said this many, many times, your grandkids are rummaging around up in the attic, and they find your MAGA hat that you buried away, right? That you hid, that you wanted nobody to see. You couldn't bring yourself to throw it away. That would be weird. They should have done that to begin with. You couldn't bring yourself to throw it away, so you stuck it in a drawer. Excuse me. And your grandkid found it. And they come downstairs and they say, I was just learning. They're in 6th grade. We were just studying history, and there was this whole thing about this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, and Donald Trump, and all these accusations against him and all the things that he did. And he was a convicted felon, and he abused this woman. And you supported him, Grandpa? Well, somebody just gave me the hat. I don't know how that got in there. And then you'd grab it out of their hands, and then you'd try to change the conversation. I don't have to worry about having that conversation. Nope, I don't have to worry about that. My kids know exactly what I stand for. And so will their kids. And so will their kids. Thank you all for being here today. It was really, really heavy. For those of you who saw the first half of our live on our main, please consider following the backup right here. I appreciate that. Let's go raid Smitty, you guys. SoCal Smitty. Everybody knows SoCal, S-O-C-A-L, Smitty. Please tell him we said hello. I love you all. And like I said, I'm going to lean on y'all when the time comes. So buckle up. I appreciate you guys. Everybody's got to do something. Doesn't matter what it is. It's just got to be something. Appreciate you guys. Mods, I love you. Smartest chat on